I was homeless, an IV user of meth. They apprehended my son. I was trapped in a very domestically violent relationship with a gang member. I felt like there was just no escape, nowhere to go, nowhere to hide. I'm sorry you don't meet the criteria. I learned I was pregnant. I was accepted into a women's shelter. 2 girls came to the shelter that night. They listened. They were there when I needed somebody to talk to at 8 o'clock at night. I couldn't escape the thoughts in my head and the 4 walls around me anymore. Just talk to me. They did so many things to support me. And thanks to that, I was able to bring my baby home.
All right. That was tonight's guest, the lovely Donna. We are also joined by Kim Randall from Prairie Harm Reduction. I'm Daniel Unmanageable, and this is Hard Knox Talks, coming at you from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Treaty Number 6 territory and the traditional homeland of the Métis people. Let's say hello to Kim. Hey, Kim.
Hey.
Hey.
I'm excited to be here and mostly excited to hear Donna's story. Yeah.
So let's bring in Donna.
Yeah.
Oh, this is amazing.
So, yeah, I was just saying that normally, I'm sitting in this chair and previously in the big chair listening to other people share, and in great admiration for their bravery and ability to convey their powerful messages. And I'm so nervous that I'm not going to be able to be as impactful as some of the people that we've had. So...
Well, I know you'll do great. And before we jump in, I just want to bring in Kim here again. Kim, before we jump in, just tell us, who are you?
Well, my name is Kim. I grew up in Manitoba and I came to Saskatoon where I found Prairie Harm Reduction, and that's where I get to spend a lot of my time getting to do something I'm very passionate about.
Awesome. Okay, well, we will hear from you a little bit later and about the family support program.
Yes.
But before we jump in, I just want to say to Donna, I'm so proud of you. So I know parts of your story are hard for me to hear, and I know you know that. But please speak your truth tonight and know that I love you, and our family is so grateful that you found your way home.
Thank you. Trying to not cry here.
Okay, well, let's do this thing.
And
This is Hard Knox Talks.
Okay. Before we bring Donna back in, I just want to let our viewers and listeners know that tonight's live production is premier sponsored by Prairie Harm Reduction, emphasizing local action with national impact. To learn more about them, check out www.prairiehr.ca. So, why don't you start where you'd like to start?
Because of the focus of this, we'll start with from basically the time that the ministry became involved. Things were bad. I'm not going to, sugarcoat it or anything like that. But with that said, I don't think that things were so bad that if we hadn't had proper support, that they wouldn't have been fixable. But they came in, made all sorts of judgments, made all sorts of assumptions, and, removed Grady from our care. For me, I imploded that day. I completely imploded, like a building that is being demolished. Everything that I lived for was now gone. And to remain in the house where I had spent so much time with him and with you, and being very aware of the struggles that you were facing, it was just too hard. And unfortunately, at that time, there was a friend who I thought was a friend, who I thought I could trust, And he convinced me that I could trust him and that he could help me. And in my completely weakened state, believed him. So I agreed to leave with him. And you know the old saying of jumping out of the frying pan into the fire? That is exactly what happened. Things went from bad to horrendous virtually overnight, and I was in so over my head, and I had no idea half the time what was going on, who to trust, and like he was very physically abusive, very mentally, emotionally abusive. He'd do things just to screw with my head. He would call my parents and terrorize them. He would call and come by the house where you still were and terrorize you.
Mm-hmm.
And he would make threats, that if I did anything like tried to leave or anything, then people were going to get hurt. And he had a big reputation, and a lot of the people that I met were very aware of how dangerous this guy is, and nobody stood up to him. Everybody knew his name. He had a huge family, and it was just so terrifying. And like a little bit of background, I guess, like I grew up very sheltered. I played the organ. So I that whole sort of underbelly of the drug world was so foreign to me. All I knew was like what you saw in movies, and so not only was I unfamiliar with what I was getting myself into, being that we were in Saskatoon, I highly underestimated the realities that exist on our streets. I had no idea what was in store for me. And not only was I in over my head with this individual, I was carrying all this shame and guilt, and it was almost unbearable in the sense that like I had let so many people down, but especially my son. And compounding that, whatever interactions I was having with the ministry, like my particular caseworker, dare I say she was a twat. And that's putting it nicely. She absolutely had no sympathy for anything that I was dealing with. She treated me with absolute condemnation, and it was apparent that her attitude toward me was, how you're a mother, how could you do this to your child? And then there was these expectations set upon me, but no pathways really to get to those expectations. And so my desire to get back in contact with my son and get visits with him got further and further and further away. And simultaneous to that, the person that I was tethered to, I mean, like, there came a point where I basically, especially towards the end, called him like a cancer that I could just not get rid of. He was inescapable. And if I escaped him personally and physically, he had immense gang ties and a huge family, like blood family as well as street family. So it didn't matter where I went, what I tried, he knew, and things that I had told like people that I thought I could trust, like especially I'd been in and out of a women's shelter. I thought I was telling them things in confidence, and eventually he'd put it all back on me, and he'd be like, "Why are you talking shit about me?" And I knew what was coming. Like it was completely common for me to be walking around with 2 black eyes and just beat up, And and then the ministry, of course, used that against me, because I was in a domestic violent dynamic. I wasn't allowed to see my son. You look like you had something to say.
So, when did you start using intravenously?
Oh, I'd say approximately a month after I left the house. You know what, probably not even a month after. Because, like, the thing about the situation at that time, like, I was smoking and, you know, roaming around, really, like, we were completely transient. And so my pipes would get broken. And at that time, I was not aware of, safe supply of pipes and needles and different things. And that program may have very well been in its infancy at that particular time. So given all the hurt and the pain that I was carrying, I couldn't just stop using. Like, it was I was in this, like, weird state of, if I didn't use, I couldn't handle my reality. My cat's chewing on my finger. I could not handle my reality. And oftentimes I was like, is this fucking happening? This can't be my reality. Like, I must be having some bad dream that I just am not waking up from. Like, what the hell happened? And so anyways, he introduced me to needles shortly after leaving the house and being transient and stuff like that. So, and then yeah, my use was, it very quickly, if anybody's familiar, went from 5 packs to 20 packs a day. And you hear people talking about chasing the dragon breath and all that kind of stuff, and that was me. And, like, there were times I was so close to dying. I knew it. Like, I remember one time I went down. In fact, it was the first 20 pack I did. I went down and I was on all fours and I was focusing on this square on the floor and breathing. And I just remember thinking, like, for fuck's sakes, Donna, don't pass out, because if you do, you may never wake up. So I breathed through it and I managed to breathe through it, and I was okay. But it was from that point forward, it was there was this part of me that wanted to die, and there was this part of me that was like, if this is my fate, why don't you just take me now? Like, get this fucking suffering over with, please. I can't take anymore. And there was one situation where he assaulted me very bad in a hotel. Police were called, all that kind of stuff, and he knocked me out. So when paramedics responded, they took me to the hospital to be, checked out and whatever. And a social worker in the hospital came to me and said, like, listen, we can get you a spot in detox in Prince Albert, but you have to get there by 5 o'clock tonight. So my dad, even though he was, like, I had lost contact with my parents basically, they were super upset with me. And, like, I don't think they knew how to handle my reality. Like, and they had my son in their care, so they had to focus on him. So anyways, my dad came to the hospital, and, we went to PA as quickly as we could. And I did the 3 days detox. Well, I was in there for 2.5 days. It happened to be my birthday. And if anybody knows anything about coming down from meth, you get depressed really bad. And this depression just hit hard. And it was my birthday. I was alone. I was in PA. I couldn't even call anybody because you're not allowed to call for those first 3 days. And I wrapped the cord from my bed around my neck. And as I was blacking out, I saw my little boy's eyes. That's all I saw, was his big blue eyes just looking at me like he used to when he was a baby. And I thought, what the fuck am I doing? So fortunately, I had the wherewithal to go to the staff and say, listen, you can't leave me in my room. I can't be alone. So from that point, they actually checked me into the psych center, which is adjoining the detox, and I was monitored there and put on some meds, which helped stabilize me. And um, then eventually I got discharged. But I had nowhere to go when I got discharged, so I came back to Saskatoon and nowhere to go. I ended up right back in the mix and continued on using. It made a few attempts to get out on my own. Had attended, like I dropped in at the mental health and addictions office, and they said, "Oh, I'm sorry, you're going to have to call," and this and that. So then, and I didn't even have a phone, so it was just it was so difficult to get out of that situation. And I'm sorry, I'm going to kind of jump forward because it's time constraints and different things, but the long and short of it is I did make a few attempts to get out, but the barriers and expectations were just so high and unrealistic. It was and every person I talked to there, I felt this like air of condemnation and unrealistic expectations given my circumstances, and I'm sure so many people can relate to that. So I felt sick and I couldn't figure out why. And I learned I was pregnant. And funny enough, like if it was like a week earlier, I was again at my wit's end. Like I wanted to die, but I didn't want to die. It was such a fucked place to be in. And I threw my hands up in the air and I said, I don't know what to do. I'm so lost. I can't take this anymore. Please, please help me. And a couple of weeks later, I peed on a stick and I learned I was pregnant. My first thought was like, are you fucking serious?
I take it back.
this is your answer to my prayers? Like, Jesus. Excuse me for using the name in vain there, but and I'm going down this checklist like I'm fucking homeless. I'm an IV user. I'm in this domestic violent relationship. I have no family. I have no support. I'm like, what? This is like the worst thing that could have happened. And on top of that, I was thinking like, even if I do get out, how is that going to impact my ability to reconnect with my son and my family and all these crazy thoughts? So I told him that I was pregnant, and he made all sorts of crazy threats, including like if I didn't terminate the pregnancy, he was going to have some of his, friends help me with that. And I didn't know what to do again. So I for whatever reason, I got on a city bus and I rode that bus for must have been about 3 hours. And the bus driver, bless his soul, bless his heart, he came to the back of the bus and he said, I know we have a beautiful city, but I've never seen anybody ride the bus for that long. Are you okay? And this poor man, I unloaded. I just completely unloaded. And he took me back to the downtown bus office. And the lady there called a women's shelter. And they got me in right away. And that was the night that everything changed for me. The staff had already been familiar with me. I'd been in and out of the shelter a couple times, but I was at that point just treated like another one of the street girls and, whatever. But this time was completely different because I was not just, a woman coming off the street. I was a woman who was pregnant. And what initially felt like the worst possible thing that could have happened turned into absolutely the best thing that happened. Like that pregnancy, the baby, Kendra, saved my life. And when you are pregnant, different services become available. And one of the staff right away called 601, which Prairie Harm Reduction now, but I knew them as 601. And two girls came out that night and sat down and listened to me. And they didn't try to tell me what to do. They weren't all like, well, if you don't do A, B, and C, we're going to kick you out of the program. There was absolutely no expectations. There was absolutely no like riding in on a horse with all the answers. Their approach was like, we are here to listen and to support you. We don't know exactly what you've been through, but we understand that you are very traumatized, and we will support you in however you feel that you need to be supported. And that was the first time in all the times that I had dealt with professionals, we'll say, in that field, that I felt validated, that I felt hope. And so going forward, because of the initial ministry involvement, I was flagged in the system. And normally that is an automatic apprehension at the hospital. For whatever reason, I guess, luck, as you would have it, the ministry was running this pilot project called the Prenatal Pilot Project. And PHR 601 Outreach at the time were a huge part in advocating to the ministry. Came up with case plans. We talked about, all the different community-based organizations that had come around to support me. We met with the ministry, and these people basically assured the ministry that whatever difficulties and challenges that I had been experiencing up to that point were being managed, and that they would continue to support me even after the baby's birth for as long as I needed. This wasn't like you've got 10 minutes and we're out. Like this was, we're here for as long as you need us to be. Mm-hmm. So it was, they were such a huge part of my getting out and my remaining in a good place, because crises and crazy fucking thoughts don't stop at 6 o'clock,
Mm-hmm.
and like, I wasn't comfortable going to meetings. I was scared to go to meetings because of the gang affiliations that he had, and reporting back to him. People keep tabs, and it's there's so many unspoken rules, and there's so much shit going on that like you have no idea until you're deep in it, and it's fucking terrifying. And these guys, they even came up with a safety plan, like in case he showed up. They were like, yeah, just give us a call. We'll come with the van. We'll get you out of there, get you and baby out. And it was just everything that I needed and everything I needed to hear. And at times when my thoughts were racing and I was terrified and couldn't handle it anymore, they'd come and they'd take me for a coffee. And actually one of those coffee dates, we'll call it, I had found my parents' phone number, but I was too scared to call.
So they actually changed their phone number, correct?
They had moved suddenly, and yeah, they had unlisted their phone number, and I didn't know how to reach them. And a couple times I checked, 411, and their number wasn't listed. And then one day, there it was. And actually, I did call, and my mom answered, and I didn't know what to say, and I wasn't sure how she'd respond, so I just hung up the phone. I was too scared to even say hello. Mm-hmm. So we were out for coffee, and I said to the girls, I said, like, because they were asking, like, what would you like to do next? What's your next step? And I said, I would really like to make contact with my family. I really need them in my life. And they said, okay, what can we do? And I said, well, actually, I've got their phone number here, but I'm too scared to call. And the one girl said, would you like me to call? And I said, yeah, but I'm scared as shit. And they were just so supportive. And she called, she identified herself. My dad happened to answer the phone. She identified herself and she said, I have somebody here that would like to talk to you. Would you like to talk to her? And I was I was so sure he was going to say no. Like, I was just like, it has been so crazy, like, so crazy. And he said, yeah, I would. He started crying. We all started crying. And so we met for coffee downtown. And that was the beginning of reconnecting with my parents. And then there was the journey back to getting visitation with my son, who was now in Dan's care. That was yet another huge hurdle that was terrifying because like there had been a lot of shit happen between Dan and I in that time and leading up to that, and another terrifying hurdle to get over, and they were there the whole way.
Let's look at some comments. You're doing great, by the way.
Thank you.
Let's see here. Oh, we've got our friend Kelsey. Kelsey, it's good to see you tonight. Kelsey says, I'm so sorry that the person who was supposed to help you caused you further harm.
Thank you, Kelsey.
Oh, and there's Kim. Hi, Kim.
Hey, I'm still here, just listening.
Yeah. So Kim is the director of the program that Donna is speaking about. Now, if we haven't made that clear yet, that's why Kim is here tonight, and we're going to hear about that program from the director's side in a little while. So I didn't get all the technical stuff figured out, so Kim pops up at weird times, and we're happy to have her.
I'd also just quickly like to mention that, you know, not only did I have the ability to reach out when I felt I needed, if they didn't hear from me for a couple of days, they would just send a quick text like, hey, how are you doing? Just doing a quick check-in. It was, you know, non-threatening or non-invasive. It was just, hey, just want to make sure you're okay. You know, and then after Kendra was born, you know, how's things with the baby? Are you doing okay? Do you need anything? Like, how are you on diapers and stuff like that? And like, I was such a scatterbrain. There was times like 10 o'clock at night. I'm like, yeah, I kind of need a few diapers. Shit. And actually, you know, when Kendra was born, a couple of girls from 601 came to the hospital. They were actually my first visitors. And they brought the cutest little stuffy. I don't know if anybody's familiar with Clarice from Rudolph.
From Bambi.
From Rudolph, the Christmas movie, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Okay.
Yep.
My bad. Trying to butt my way into your story. So, more comments.
Okay.
Let's see here. Dear Recovery, nice to see you this evening. Dear Recovery says, isn't it crazy how addiction doesn't discriminate or have a look? I would have never guessed Donna used intravenously. Isn't she beautiful? Tiffany says, Donna, sweet Donna, praise God you are here with us today and share your story, your strength, your truth.
Thank you, Tiffany.
Twinkle wants to know what a 20-pack is.
Well, I'm a little bit nervous to explain, but yeah, since I put it out there, I have to. So a 20-pack is you like there's notches on the syringe, and you pack the meth to a certain measurement. So 5, 10, 20. And some people do more, but you know, that's generally what a 20-pack means. Which is apparently a lot. I've had people be like, fuck, no, you didn't. I'm like, oh yeah, every day that I could anyways, you know, but I was like, you know, binning and different things to support the habits. Sometimes like I would just trade off like, you know, cleaning even, or I was like, cause I'm really small, I could fit in those Salvation Army bins and the community living bins really well. So I dig out all sorts of great clothes and use that as currency. So yeah, we get creative when we got to.
Got our dear friend Terry. Terry, we're so glad you're here tonight with us. Thanks for being here, and thanks for the comment. Terry says, "Oh my God, Donna, I'm just sitting here bawling my eyes out. The way you speak, I can feel it deep in my heart. Grateful to hear this. It's so hard to hear this. So hard to hear. I love you."
Thank you, Terry.
What else do we got? I want to shine some light on this. Kelsey says, "Sending love to you, Dan. I can see the pain in your eyes. And I just want to say out loud that this is not pain. This is healing. I am very grateful to be in this moment with Donna." So, Kim, do you have anything that you'd like to add? I'm sorry that you're just there in the middle of nowhere right now.
No, it's okay. I like being in the middle of nowhere right now. I really appreciate Donna's story and just really getting to hear it. And I don't know, as when I first started with PHR, we were 601, and no, we do a lot of just that connection piece, and like that's where it all starts is, hey, how's it going? And sometimes check-ins with people go good, sometimes they don't. I like what you said about, if they didn't hear about me in after a few days, we would reach out. Actually, we have we call it our call list, where we go through a list of all our, people who we're connected with. And we say, Kate, we're going to call, we're going to do a drive-by check-in. We haven't heard from this person in a few days or a week or 2 weeks. They usually reach out. That's a huge thing that we get to do is just, hey, how's it going? Do you need anything? That little connection goes a long way.
Yeah, it sure did. It made me feel like somebody cared. And this was, even before I reconnected with my family. So when I left the women's shelter, and they kindly let me stay longer than normal because I was in such crisis and different variables. But so when I left the shelter, it's funny, because like the whole time I was in the shelter, I just wanted to be left alone. I'm like, just give me 10 minutes alone. I just want to like be with my thoughts, my feelings, whatever. Basically, I wanted to be like a wounded animal and lick my wounds in private. And the shelter that I was in, we were sharing rooms, sometimes as many as 6 women in a room, and bunk beds. I hate bunk beds to this day. Like, so anyway, so when I left there and I got my own apartment for the first time, it was so fucking quiet. It was just maddening some days, and I was still like, processing, and it was really, really challenging. And sometimes, yeah, I would lose track of a couple days, and then all of a sudden, 601 would pop up on my phone like, "Hey, girl, are you okay?" And it was just so like, somebody gives a shit about me enough to check in and ask, "How are you doing?"
So, what stood out about that story to you, Kim? Now, what stood out? Let me share a little bit of what stood out to me as a service provider. And when Donna was connecting with her parents and whoever else, and she said, everybody's crying. Like, tell us what that's like for you. Certainly you must carry that home sometimes. You must build a bond with the people that you work with. Tell us a little bit about that and how you handle it.
Oh, yes. This is, well, first of all, we practice a lot of self-care. Sometimes it is hard. We really focus on that connection piece with our program and everything that we do. And we carry that stuff with us as well. Like, it was probably hard for our workers at the same time, like getting to be this piece in your story with this reconnection, but also, being like, man, this is tough. Because, sometimes we don't have a tough time going back home, sometimes it's, we have it easier. And just knowing like, man, I care so much for the people who I get to support, knowing that, you know, this is going on as well in their life. And, you know, we do carry it. And there's no way not to carry it. Like, this is what we choose to do. This is how we choose to connect with people. And really, we've had so many success stories, so many great things, but, you know, it's tough. It's super tough getting there. It's, you know, you were talking about how you lost track of time and days, you know, and then we just popped up out of nowhere. We like to do that a lot. We like to, you know, just be that person who's like, hey, we're just this support worker, but you know what? We know what's going on. We know it's a tough time. And like, if you need something, we're here. And we want to listen. And oftentimes people are like, oh, you're right. I do have support. I do have somebody who makes space for me, who makes me feel safe. And I think that's how, you know, we have people coming back to us saying, you know, this is what I need today. I might not need this tomorrow. I have this big picture of what I all need, but right now I need somebody to listen. I need somebody to make me feel safe and valid. And that's a lot of what we get to do. I'm glad we got to make that space for you. I'm glad we had that connection.
I'm so eternally grateful to you guys. You know, like it was so different from anything that I had experienced up until that point. You know, I would like to mention as well, like a healthy mom, healthy baby was present, and our friend Chelsea, who was with the rapid rehousing program, which is unfortunately no longer. But you know, up until this stage in my life, I had never experienced such supportive, empathetic people. Just this absolute genuine desire to walk with me however I saw fit. It wasn't like, you need to do this, you need to do that. It was literally walking hand in hand however I needed that particular moment or that day. And for me, that was huge. I mean, for some people, like I know Dan, he talks about how he needed his ass kicked.
It's true.
And I was on this opposite spectrum of like, I've just had my ass kicked for 18 months straight. I need somebody to hold me and tell me it's okay.
And like I tried, like, cause I'm a program guy, right? Like I came up in the program, I got sober in the program, and I needed an old school sponsor, kick my ass around the room, sit down, shut up, do the steps. I tried doing that to Donna. It did not work. It did not work.
Nope.
So sorry about that, by the way.
I know. It's okay.
So I've learned a lot by my experiences with Donna, both in active addiction, because we were together for 8 years before all of this went down. You know, we were a family, you know, and the addiction just it took everything, you know, and then all of the stuff that, you know, we just talked about happened. But she's definitely taught me how to be a bit softer, you know, a bit more understanding to things that a bit more willing to give space to things that I don't necessarily understand. So anyways, Kim, what are some of the most engaged services or resources that you offer? I know Donna said like diapers and you know, outreach and things like that. What is the things that seems to be needed most of all?
Well, yeah, definitely that diaper piece. We run a diaper and formula program. We run it actually strictly off donations. We have our phone number out there. A lot of other agencies have our number, and if somebody calls and is like, we're looking for diapers, they often get referred to us, and it's a huge connection piece. Because, you know, diapers are expensive, formula is expensive, and it's a huge barrier. So we often have families who that's where our point of connection begins is, hey, I need diapers. These are the sizes. Sometimes we have them, sometimes we don't. We ask them, can you pick them up or do you need them dropped off? And sometimes, they come to our office and they come in and we give them diapers and they're like, whoa, you guys do all this stuff here?
Mm-hmm.
And so from that point of just needing diapers and coming in, we get to build that connection. And, sometimes it is just diapers, sometimes it is just formula. We don't ask, well, why can't you get diapers on your own? Like, no, if we have them, we're going to give them, no questions asked. It's none of our business why you need diapers or formula. You need them, we have them.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do it.
Has that
Coffee. Yeah.
has that mentality helped build rapport with people who were then able to move forward because you reduced those barriers to them?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Especially right now, I find that we're seeing rent is ridiculous. People need to house their kids. Of course, paying a bill is going to come before diapering your baby because you have places out there who can help with that barrier. So sometimes mums or cookums, want to tell us, the reason why I can't afford diapers or formula is because I needed to pay my rent. I needed to pay my utilities, and like, we need somewhere to live because really you do.
Mm-hmm.
So, and really from just the diapers and formula, we've built so much more relationship and so much more, where families can come to when they need bigger things or even when they just need emotional support because they, text. A lot of times it's a text. They just, this is what I need. And we give it to them. We don't ask questions. And so that often creates, a safer space for people to feel like, oh, well, I'm having an off day. They're always so good about giving me diapers. I'm just going to talk. And that's where a lot of connection begins. And it opens the door to, there's also, I could use help in this area. I could use help with food security. I have involvement with the ministry. I don't know if that's something you guys help with. Can you help me, understand? And that is something we help with. And that is something we really get to help families navigate as well as just having ministry involvement. It's scary. It's scary having someone come into your house and be like, actually, you can't take care of your kid, so I'm going to take them. And your kid gets apprehended. Yeah.
So can I just add something here?
Yeah.
About that experience for me? So the very last thing that I handed Graydon the day that the ministry came and took him from us was his favorite stuffy. He's had it since he was born, and his name's Puppy. And to remember that day, and I'm sure lots of people have seen this, but I know Kim hasn't. I had Puppy tattooed on my arm, watching over Graydon, because Puppy could go and watch over him when I couldn't. And I didn't get this to remember the shame because I don't necessarily feel shame, I think we all did the best we could with what we had and the feelings we had and the reality that we had at that time. But I do want to remember it so that I can use that memory to keep pushing forward in conversations like this.
Yeah.
So, Donna, tell us what it was like just coming in to recovery with Kendra and needing diapers. Like, what were some of the things that were going through your mind that you were so grateful that you could reach out to 601 for?
The emotional support. It was the you're not trying hard enough. God, I heard that so many times. And these guys were just like, baby steps. Let's just take some baby steps. And and we're going to hold your hand through. Like, I heard a great analogy today, it's probably been used quite a bit, but with a baby, we hold their two hands when they're learning to walk. And as they get a little bit more confident, we hold onto their hips as they, continue to figure out those steps. And then eventually we kind of let go. And when they fall on their bum, we pick them up and we say, that's okay. Good try. But when it comes to addicts or people attempting to find recovery, more often than not, there's no picking them up and saying, it's okay, let's try again. You get kicked when you're down. And then not everybody, but a lot of people wonder, why can't you do it? And then after you've stumbled a couple times, it gets scarier and scarier to even make that attempt, because there's a good chance you're going to let everybody down again. And sometimes it's easier to just remain in that that zone. It almost becomes comfortable in the sense that you don't have to face the getting hopes up and everybody's like, yeah, and then you're going to fall down again. Until you have those proper supports in place, like Prairie Harm Reduction. And I'm not trying to discount anybody else's support systems or any other modalities out there. What I'm trying to convey is the importance of finding a support system that works for you and with you in however you feel comfortable and see fit.
Sorry if my question didn't make sense. I'll be completely transparent. I'm a little shook tonight too. This is a powerful story, and it's close to home, and well, it is home. So let's look at some comments. So we've got Gail Parkin. Gail says, Donna, you always have and always will hold such a precious part of my heart and my memories. I'm so proud of you. Who's Gail?
It's my best friend from childhood. Met her when I was about 6 years old.
Nice to meet you, Gail.
We were best friends for forever. And then high school kind of drove, went to different high schools and different things, and kind of lost contact and different things. And oddly, actually, just a few weeks, she lives in Alberta, and she happened to be in Saskatoon a few weeks ago. And I was going into Shoppers, and all of a sudden I hear this, Donna? And I turn around and I'm like,
shit.
Yeah, that was good. It's oh God. Well, and then on top of that, with what we do, sometimes we get recognized out in public. So I'm looking at this face. I'm like, you look familiar, but why? And then she spoke again, and I was just like, oh my God, it's Gail. I hadn't seen her in years. I don't even know how she recognized me, really. But thank you so much, Gail. I love you.
We've got another one. We've got one from Barb. She gets that for saying this one. Barb says, may we all give more space for things we don't understand. Amen, my friend.
Mm-hmm.
Toby Scott, thanks for the comment. Toby says, I got a lot of love from people from my program outside of the rooms, and the love I received is one from my main reasons. I pushed to get off the streets. Love seems like a major key in recovery, even in many forms.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I'd like to just say on that point, it's not just the love of other people, but it's also being able to reestablish that love for yourself. That is super important, because when we've been in addiction for a while, boy, we hate ourselves. We hate everything that we've become, everything that we stand for. It's just such a self-loathing. It's hard. So you need those people around you to show you that you are worth it, and you deserve to be loved. And from that, then you're able to start finding your footing again. And that was one thing again about these guys, was that unlike with other interactions that I'd had, they didn't treat me like what had happened to me was my fault. With some people, it was like, well, you're living the life, what did you expect? Or if I was really like dope sick or whatever, people would be like, well, that'll learn you. There's just this like coldness, and I had grown accustomed to that sort of reaction to my experiences, and 601 it was so different, and it was everything that I needed.
How long did it take you to start really to start feeling that love for yourself again?
It took conversations with 601, Prairie Harm Reduction. I'm sorry, old habits die hard.
It's okay. People still call us 601 all the time.
Okay, cool. And then my another close support had turned me on to meditations, and I listened to a lot of like self-hypnosis and meditations, and I just started getting a different perspective on the situation, everything that happened, and it was a gradual process. I can't pinpoint exactly when that happened, but it was a work in progress.
So we've got a pile of comments coming in here. Let's look at a couple of more. We're not going to get to all of them, and I'm sorry, you guys. I know we like to look at as many comments as we can.
Before we get into comments, I'd like to ask Kim, like from when I was accessing the program, what has changed? Because it seems like a few things have changed for.
Yeah, we definitely we're expanding and growing. We actually now run a semi-independent housing program. It's called Oski Kisika. It's Cree for It's a New Day. We get to house 8 families. It's a program of its very own kind. Like there's not another one like us in Canada. We get to support families with like that housing piece and the reunification piece between families as well. We also run some visiting suites that parents can access to see their littles. We got a new van. So that's
Yay.
nice. It always, we're out all the time. Coffee visits. Like, I think we do a lot of the same things. Like, we have grown and we do a bit more, but our main piece is really just that connection, that meeting people where they're at. That's still our core. That's still how we run everything that we do. That's how we run our housing program is, through connection with families. Like, what do you need? How can we help you to be successful? Like, we know that there's people in your lives telling you this is what you need to do. This is how you have to do it. But that might not work. And we have seen so much success in being, giving families that you tell us what you need. You tell us how you need to be supported. And we found that's just, it works. So that's how we do everything, with our family support program. With, 601 is just meeting people where they're at, asking people what they need. Because who are we to say, this is what you need to do in order to be successful. This is what you need to do in order to get your kid back. This, parents know. You knew what you needed. And it was your voice that, helped you get your little one back and get to keep your new baby. Like, that's how to be successful, is helping people, with what they need. And that's how we do everything.
Okay. A few more comments. And again, I apologize. There's so many coming in. I'm sorry. We're not going to get to them all. I knew that was going to happen, though. I knew as soon as we put Donna on the screen, I knew this was going to happen. She's like, oh, I'm so nervous. I'm like, you're going to do amazing. Yeah. So anyways, we got Denise Kennedy. Denise says, people like you speaking out who have actually made it is so important. And I love that you guys are all doing this, bringing the spotlight on addiction and bringing it out in the open. And we have our friend Carissa, past guest.
Oh, Carissa.
Yeah, friend of Donna. Carissa, thank you for the comment. Carissa says, thank you for choosing the path of inspiring recovery and sharing your story. You will be someone's reason to have hope again and believe they too can save their own lives. It's not just one someone, but many. And thank you for bringing awareness to the services in our community and how we can all offer more support to these services.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Carissa.
And our friend Angie. Angie, it's good to see you in the chat. It's been a minute. So glad you're here tonight.
She's busy in Palm Springs getting a tan.
Oh, she made time for us during
Thank
her
you,
Palm
Angie.
Springs
we
visit.
love you.
Angie says, thank you, Donna, for being vulnerable and sharing your difficult journey to recovery. You are bringing hope to so many who are still struggling and their families. Yep. You know, the family thing is something that we don't talk near enough about.
Mm-hmm.
So before we go though, I do want to talk, Kim and Donna, about the advocacy involved in Donna's story, in both, you know, making contact with parents and then advocating to be able to bring Kendra home, trying to reduce barriers to our son Graydon. That's a whole nother story. That'll be like a whole nother hour. Let's just say Donna and I have not always been this amicable. So, and what a wild ride it's been. Someday maybe we'll jump on the stream and we'll take 3 hours and tell the whole thing. but yeah, like, walk with us a little bit and briefly. We're getting long here, but yeah, please tell us a little bit about what it was like dealing with the ministry as far as being flagged, and what that all looked like.
Terrifying would be an understatement. You know, after having Grady removed from our care, and just like the feeling of guilt and shame I had was unbearable. And then the sort of dynamic that developed within the family, loss of contact and everything. Like, I literally felt like I was walking around like my family had all just died in a car accident. Like, that was the level of grief that I was carrying. Like, it was unbearable. So the fact that I got to where I was, in my mind, was a miracle, really. Like, I was in this sort of state of like, if I'm meant to die, it's going to happen. If not, I'm not, you know, like, I'm very fatalistic way or something. And the potential of losing another child to the ministry, I was like, oh no, I'll never survive it. I'll never survive that. So having people like 601 have that capacity to communicate effectively with 601, with the ministry, and talk their language, and provide those reassurances, and like, look, this is what we're doing, this is where she's come, you know, all these different things that they could illustrate. Really, it was, that was the life-saving piece for me, was that advocacy. And even early on when I reconnected with my parents, like, they were fucking terrified. Like,
We were all terrified.
Holy Jesus, like, woo, here we go again, you know? Because, like, you know, there had been times where I'm like, yeah, I'm doing better and everything will be okay. And then I'd, you know, fall down again. So they're terrified. And then, of course, at this time I'm pregnant. So again, it was these guys and a couple of the other supports that I had that really were able to lay it out for them. Like, this is what we're doing. This is what we're prepared to do. This is what we can do. And we're going to hold her hand until she's on the other side and beyond if needed. You know, so that really alleviated a lot of their concerns.
So Kim, can you unpack that a little bit from your side? Something I am curious about. Are you always welcomed? Like when you reach out to a family to help them, and you knowing what you know about how you can help them and what we've heard tonight, are there still some families that are resistant?
Yeah, we sometimes get fired. We're kind of one of those services where, if you don't want to work with us, you don't have to. We're not going to ever ban anybody, but we do sometimes have a bit of, hesitancy. We are just workers coming into a situation. A lot of times, like, no, we are strangers going into people's house.
Hmm.
And a lot of times there's been just bad experience. So what is going to make this one better? So sometimes it's not always easy building connection. It's not always easy building that relationship with people where they can trust you and, come to you when they need something. So we're not always welcomed, but we will always be there.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That must be very challenging for you guys, because like even with my own experience, like I had such a degree of mistrust. Like it was,
Yeah.
and especially people like social workers, I thought they were all evil.
Yeah.
And they couldn't be trusted. And, it
Mhm.
didn't help that the day that the ministry apprehended Grady from our care, they showed up with two cops. And then they stood in our dining room laughing.
Hmm. That's a fact.
They stood there laughing like they were on a coffee break and they're standing around the water thing, whatever. It
Meanwhile,
was
they were taking our
disgusting.
son out the door.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm like literally a puddle on the floor. I can't even talk. I'm crying so hard, wailing like somebody
Mhm.
just died. And
Yeah.
I felt like somebody had just died. Like I felt like my son had just died. And they're
Yeah.
standing there laughing. And then just the treatment I got, after that, and nobody really honoring the degree of pain that I was in. And when you deal
Yeah.
with that time and time and time and time again, and for some of these folks that I'm sure you're engaging, this has been lifelong treatment that they've received
Yeah.
like that. You know, Mine fortunately was only an 18-month stint, but some folks, this is a fucking from day one. This
Lifetime.
is the
Yeah.
treatment that they get.
Hmm.
So it must
Mhm.
be incredibly challenging for you guys sometimes to break through that and be like, no,
Yeah.
we're not like them. we're,
Yeah.
we are complete opposite, actually.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So I lied. I have one more question. Uh, do you guys do any work proactively? Like before there's ministry involvement? Like, do you support parents that are actively using? Like, do you believe that parents who are using can be supported to such an extent that they can still be parents?
Yeah, so we do a lot of safety planning with our families. Life is hard. Being a mom is hard. Having your kids somewhere safe where you know that you can do what you need to do, but also knowing that your kids are going to be safe, like that's a huge thing. We do a lot of before it gets to the point where ministry um, are involved, safety planning, whether it's, even finding housing. Want to we want to prevent ministry involvement. We just want our families to be together, and families look different all the time. Families are different,
Hmm.
and there's a lot of barriers out there in parenting. So just really that connection piece is something that we do a lot with. And before the point of involvement, we really try to have, safety plans in place so it doesn't happen, but sometimes it does.
Yeah.
Mhm,
Okay, Kim. Thanks so much for joining us tonight.
mhm.
Yes,
Is
thanks for having me.
is there before we let you go, is there anything that you would like to leave us with? Like maybe how can people reach out to you?
Um, well, my you can reach out to me through email. It's familysupport@prairiehr.ca.
You put that in the chat.
I think if I really want to say anything, it would be people deserve to feel safe. People deserve to be supported. And, you know, families deserve to be together. And, you know, harm reduction, what we do at 601, what we do at Prairie Harm Reduction, you know, it works. It's shown, like it's proven, like connection, harm reduction, it works.
Awesome.
Absolutely does. Actually, I wanted to get a t-shirt. There were t-shirts made up for Kendra and I that, you know, we are living proof that harm reduction works.
Yes.
Yeah.
You should do it.
Your guys' next swag design.
Yes. No, that's a really good idea. I'm going to take note of that.
Maybe
Can
you run your email by me one more time? I was looking at other comments and kind of missed. So it's family support.
Yeah, family support at prairiehr.ca.
Okay, I did have it right.
Yeah.
Awesome.
prairiehr.ca. Actually, our friend Barb and I were plotting like this whole, like, you know, campaign around that that concept.
Yes.
But that again is yet another episode.
Yes, that's a whole other episode. Yeah. Thanks so much, Kim, for joining us. We'll let you go.
Thanks.
I'm sure we'll talk again. Take care for now.
For sure. You too. Bye.
Donna.
Yes, my love.
Is there anything that you would like to leave us with tonight?
It's always such a hard question to answer when you're not like super prepared. You know, I just like, yeah, I don't know, man. If there's anybody listening that is still struggling, you know, reach out and you know, you never know who is out there that can support you. Maybe let your barriers down just a little. Give somebody a chance to connect with you. I know, like when the 601 first showed up, I had my guard up, you know, and but something about their way just like broke those barriers down. And the most important thing, I think, is that there is hope. You know, don't give up. Keep trying. Tomorrow is another day. You're worth it.
You know, something people might not know is the sound bite at the very end of this show. The one that says, "This is Hard Knox Talks." That's baby Kendra. So with that, Donna, I'm going to say goodnight, even though you're still going to be sitting right beside me. So here we go. All right. If you are getting something out of what we're doing here, you can find us on all audio platforms like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts, or live and interactive right here on Facebook or YouTube. Thanks so much for watching. Take care, my friends.
Say, this is Hard Knox Talks.